even this year, they're going to probably hopefully qualify for the state game. They're in the regionals now. On this particular day in 1922, December 1st, they were in Raleigh playing in a championship football game against Sanford, which they won 6-0, but nobody knew about it. So pretty much a half of the city or better was up there watching the football game. So a fire started on the Roland Lumber Company on the Neuse River. On any given day, the breeze is always 4 to 5 miles an hour down there. And this particular day, it was about 50, 55 miles an hour.
Wow.
So it's a pretty stiff breeze. They have their own fire suppression crew, so they could put out a fire. A lot of different fires. Sawdust is combustible. But on this particular day, they couldn't control it. So they called an alarm into the New Bern Fire Department at 8 o'clock in the morning. Unfortunately, the response wasn't all that great. So they had to call in for assistance. So they called Kinston, which is a half an hour drive now. Back then, it took about an hour to get here. And they called Little Washington, which is a 45-minute drive now. It took them 2 hours to bring their equipment down. So while they were waiting, the fire is growing and growing and growing. When they finally showed up, their equipment wouldn't match up with the fire hydrant, so they had to come to the firehouse to get equipment. Nothing is standardized. Coast Guard sent a cutter up, but the wind was blowing so hard the water wouldn't reach the fire. So while they're fighting that fire, they brought a train engine down from the switching yard, which is about 5-6 blocks in the other direction, and started to tear down 4 or 5 of these houses to try to make a fire break.
Right.
Tracks got so hot and warped they couldn't use it any longer. So they started to dynamite a couple houses. So while they were fighting this fire, the second fire started over on Kilmarnock Street.
So there was two different
separate fires.
Okay.
That, it's about the third house in. There's a short block that's still there. This is the African American section of town. All the houses are very close together. All wood shingles, very volatile. So the fire started growing in this direction. It got over to about here and they dynamited about 15 houses. There's a picture on the wall of one of the houses being dynamited. And that was to make a fire break, or try to make a fire break.
Yeah.
Again, the African American Fire Department had very limited equipment, so they were already strapped anyways. So when the fire finally reached Cedar Grove Cemetery, that actually acted as a fire stop temporarily. It worked its way around the corner and started on the other side of the railroad tracks. This railroad track is no longer there.
Yeah.
But it acted as a fire break the way the wind was blowing. It jumped over this building right here, which is the old train station, which was the only building that survived in this whole section. And that was because it had a metal roof and it was partially brick. And caught these buildings on fire. So the two fires met. So 8 o'clock in the morning, 10:30 in the morning, they finally got control of the whole fire about 4:30, 5 o'clock the following morning. You'll see 2 houses and a church on that side of the railroad tracks is the only thing that caught on fire over there. So there was good news and bad news. There was almost 1,100 buildings and houses destroyed. Almost 3,100 people put out of their homes. Out of the 3,100, the vast majority was African American. I'd say probably about 60 people were white. They had no place to stay, no place to live, so Fort Bragg set up tents. So each family got 2 tents, one to sleep in, one to cook in. Other branches of the service, other organizations set up cots, cooking utensils, food, clothing, lanterns, all the stuff. These people lived like that for a year and a half, 2 years. So it's a long time, especially in December.
Yeah.
That church you see in that picture right there was the one surviving church. It still stands today. Good news is there was only one loss of life, if that's good news. Her age varied between 92 and 106. I believe she was a 102-year-old lady. They said that she died going into her house to get her plant, according to one newspaper. Again, fake news, depending on what the newspaper is. Yeah. She also owned a cat, so I think she probably went in to get her cat. Yeah. They said that her house was intentionally set, candle, and all sorts of different things. I believe it was a chimney fire. Some records will tell you that. A lot of chimney fires back in the day, but only one loss of life.
A lot of those houses had wood shingles.
All wood shingles and wood siding, very close fit. So with the wind blowing the way, with the sparks and everything going, it's very easy to catch on fire. A lot of this empty space is still down there today. Yeah. In fact, I believe they built the public housing down in this area probably in the 60s. And that's where that is now. Yeah. A lot of their history was lost, whatever history they did have. So it's really hard to gather any kind of information and stuff.
What are the current impacts today from that fire that you see in New Bern?
Well, they didn't have a lot of fire codes back in those days and stuff. Obviously, the metal roofs that you see on houses, that was one of the outcomes. They had metal roofs on here and stuff. So they started taking, more fire codes, safety concerns and stuff. Obviously, the equipment level was low. Water pressure, you still have that today. There's certain things that they still run into today. Yeah. But it really started to put a quotation marks around having better equipment and better codes and stuff to go by, so that people wouldn't fall into the same things.
Yeah. Certainly, they had to rebuild a lot of the black community.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Any good that came out of that at all that you know of?
Well, the lady that's pictured on that little placard over there, I think she was like 2 years old when most of her stuff was all from recollections. I think that there was a more common ground as far as firefighting goes and stuff. There was two separate companies, so they finally got more together and stuff. It was, instead of being a competition even between the two fire companies here, the Atlantic and Button, were always in competition. They finally all kindly got together, and when they built this building in 1928, obviously that was one of the reasons, was to bring us all together and try to get them on the same page as firefighting. City really didn't give them a lot of support back in the days and stuff.
Did I read that the football team, when they returned, they had to push the state championship game back a week, and the football players had to do guard duty or something?
Yeah. A lot of different things, and you'll get more into that when they give the tours of the talks here, because the Historical Society does a lot more research and stuff. So,
that's good stuff. All right, let's check out some of the other pictures we have here from the.
The artifacts that they've kept here, and again, that's another thing, documentation is kind of limited in what you do. Most of these pictures, a lot of them were taken from the Elks building, which is 5 stories tall. But a lot of these, they had so much of this on record that it's just unbelievable. When we moved over here, we had to sort through all this stuff to see what we were going to keep here, to try to make it more visible.
When did this display first go up?
This stuff, they bought this stuff probably 16 years ago. Until we moved over here about 6 years ago, they didn't have any place to put it. So the downstairs we did first. Yeah. And then we didn't get to the second story until about 2 years after we moved over here. And that's when we moved the stuff over. So to go through all this, that's why I felt it was important to put these pictures up to give you a visual idea of what was going on.
Even pictures were hard to come by back in the day.
Yeah. But they did a really good job documenting as far as the buildings and stuff goes.
This is really good.
Even the mural outside, those are pictures from actual newspapers and stuff.